Hello and welcome to Sax Comprehensive. My name is Ken Gowdy, and in this video we will look at the features of the Yanagisawa AWO10. The Yanagisawa AWO10 Alto Saxophone has an ordinary black plastic end cap which is not hollow, so it does not help with the air circulation when the saxophone is stored in the case. The saxophone comes with a white polishing cloth, an ordinary neck strap which is not even padded, but it does have a plastic spring-loaded hook for extra security, a tube of cork grease, and a set of keys for the case locks. The saxophone comes with an ebonite mouthpiece size 5, a 1-screw metal ligature, and a white plastic mouthpiece cap. The saxophone, which was released in 2014, is made from brass and is an improvement on its previous model. One of its distinguishing features, which is clearly seen, is the underslung neck. So now let's comment on the features and what I think are good and bad about this saxophone, starting with the negatives. Well, first of all, personally, I do not like the neck strap, which does not have any padding for added comfort. The saxophone is of a rib construction and therefore heavier, and so a good neck strap is important. But I guess if a person is going to buy a professional saxophone, then they're going to invest in a better neck strap. So I'll have to say, as another commentator stated when reviewing this same saxophone, that I will not be using the neck strap. The saxophone does not come with a swab, which is again essential for cleaning the saxophone, so this would have to be purchased separately. It comes with a polishing cloth, so they might as well have thrown in a swab as well. The mouthpiece which came with the saxophone is well made, but again, a person buying this saxophone will probably have their own preferred mouthpiece and ligature. Most of the reviews I watched had players using a different mouthpiece than the one that came with the saxophone. Now, having said that, let's look at the main body of the saxophone and the neck, which is what people are mainly paying for. And as I go through the features, I refer to what is mentioned on the website as their special features, plus any other thing that is different from my own Selma Series 2 saxophone. The things mentioned on their website that are similar to my Selma Series 2 saxophone are the 3-point bell brace, the adjustable metal bell key buffer so that the height of the bell keys can be adjusted, and the pointed pivot screws so that the moving parts move more smoothly. It has indented white pearls and a redesigned bore and tone holes for better tone and intonation. They also mention an improvement in the quality of the brass for improved sound. These are features that we would expect on a modern saxophone. It is hand engraved, though not as elaborate as the Selma floral design, which I believe is machine engraved. Some people like the fact that it's hand engraved and that time and care has been put into it. Personally, I think the machine engraving is more detailed and cost effective and produces a more stunning look. Now let's turn to those more specific Yanagisawa features. Two of the large bell key cups have a double brace, which reduces the chance of the key cups twisting and reduces sideways movement. This makes the keys more stable, producing a fully sealed tone hole. This is definitely a good feature, but I've heard other commentators state that the Yanagisawa saxophones are so well made that this feature is really not needed, and that the single brace on the other models works well at doing the job of sealing the tone hole. There is a C-sharp B, B-flat rocking system connecting these keys for easy transition between these keys. This mechanism of the left-hand pinky table is the same as the Selma design, with slight differences in how and where one key connects to another. However, the big difference is the plastic rocker between the C-sharp and B key. The Selma saxophone has a roller on the C-sharp and B keys, while the Yanagisawa has a roller on the B key and a rocker tied to the C-sharp key, so there is no roller on the C-sharp key. Obviously, when starting to move between the C sharp and B key, one key will be down while the other up. This height difference reduces the smooth movement of the finger between these keys. On the Selmer saxophone, the rollers are there to help, but this rocker system on the Yanagisawa makes the transition easier as it creates a movable bridge between these keys for the finger to slide across. I found that it worked very well when moving from the C sharp key to the B key, as the rocker changes its angle to allow the finger to slide easily between these keys, but less so when moving from the B key to the C sharp key, where moving from a key that is down to one that is up and without a roller presents the same problems. Overall, it worked very well and I tend to prefer it, but maybe introducing a small roller into the rocker might make it easier when moving from the B key back to the C sharp key. There is an extra arm fitted to the F auxiliary key, which ensures this key seals when playing in the low ranges of the saxophone and reduces the possibility of a leak from this key. It is also adjustable. This is obviously a great design which is absent from my Series 2 saxophone but introduced in the Supreme. This means that the player can make minor adjustments themselves if a leak develops in this area. The front F key has been redesigned for easier and smoother action. The key has a step in it while the Selmer front F key is beveled. I think the effect is minimal and the player will not really notice any difference between the designs. The posts are on a rib mounted construction. What this means is that the posts are not directly soldered to the body of the saxophone, but rather soldered to a plate which is soldered to the body. This creates a stronger construction, but also adds more physical weight to the saxophone, as lots of these little plates of brass are added to the body. It is argued by some that having more weight to the saxophone gives more resonance and makes the saxophone sound darker than the AWO10, which is a post construction and therefore slightly lighter and brighter. While I've heard commentators state that the rib construction gives a darker sound, I'm not sure whether the majority of people will actually hear any difference. There is also a plate for the post of the palm keys. One of the more noticeable differences between this saxophone and others is the underslung octave mechanism. I like this mechanism based solely on its looks. However, it is claimed that the underslung mechanism is quicker, leading to a more responsive action. I could not find any articles explaining the benefits of an underslung mechanism where the octave pip is still on the top of the neck, but based on my limited knowledge of physics, and since the pivot point is closer to the octave pip and under the neck, the pad moves up and away from the pip at an angle, where the normal neck, the pad moves basically up. This means that the underslung neck creates more space between the pip and the pad with less movement. However, since the movement of the octave key is small, I'm not sure whether the player would notice any difference, but it definitely looks good. Yanagisawa states that the manufacture of the underslung mechanism is expensive and difficult to make, and therefore only comes on their expensive models. The octave mechanism is also coated with a fluororesin non-stick coating to reduce the joint sticking. The pads are waterproof and have a plastic resonator. Waterproof pads are supposed to stop the water soaking through the pad and altering the material behind the pad, causing the pad to eventually change their shape, resulting in a leak. So it's supposed to give a longer life for the pad. Concerning resonators, there was a study of the effects of resonators by the McGill University, which stated that there was no noticeable difference in a blind test between metal and plastic resonators. Also, I did watch a video where a saxophone technician mentioned that plastic resonators might absorb some of the high frequencies, but is negligible, and that a change in a reed or a leak will have more of an effect on the sound than a change in the material of the resonators. The right hand pinky keys have been angled to give a better pinky finger movement. The right hand side keys have a cork base which hits against the body of the saxophone when excessive pressure is applied to these keys. Usually it's the corks under the keys in another place that stops the key heights, but the cork base here will prevent the key arms from bending out of shape. I think this is a great design as it's easy to apply too much pressure to these keys. I've often worried that I might bend these keys out of alignment, but here on this saxophone that worry is alleviated. Lastly, the website mentions that the saxophone has blue steel springs instead of stainless steel springs. It is argued that blue steel springs hold their tension for longer. Some of the other features that I've noticed that are different from my Series 2 saxophone, the lyre socket is further down the neck and not in its usual position opposite the tightening screw. This means that it cannot be used for a tone enhancer since it's located away from the socket. It has a gold-plated thumb rest and hook which blends into the design. The neck strap ring is slightly thicker. The high F sharp key has a different shape and the side F sharp key is set at a different angle. There is a brace to stop the long rods from bending and will keep them straight, creating a smoother action for the keys. This is not present on my Series 2 saxophone. Ergonomically, coming from the Selmer Series 2, I find it easy to make the transition from one saxophone to the next. In fact, personally, I find the ergonomics of the Yanagisawa better than my Selmer saxophone for my hands. The left hand pinky table is closer to the left hand pearl keys, making the G sharp key closer, and I find that the pinky finger does not have to stretch as much to reach the B flat key. While I find the position of the left hand pinky table to be good, the side F sharp key and the higher sharp key for me are not in the ideal position. Because the side F sharp key is slanted, it means that the higher sharp key is higher up, which is not in as good a position for my finger. If the lower key was less slanted, then the key above could be lowered a bit more and would be in a better position for my finger. But these keys are played less often, and I guess I would get used to it over time. But overall, for my hands, I like the ergonomics of the AWO10. Looking for adjustment screws, there seems to be only one difference between the Yanagisawa and my Series 2. The Series 2 has adjustment screws on the side keys, whereas the Yanagisawa does not. The case is a nice size. It has two locking clasps at the end. The middle clasp does not have a lock, but does have a Velcro closing strap covering it. There are pieces of leather attached to the corners to reinforce them against knocks. On the top is a large zip pocket capable of holding sheet music. It has 4 feet on the bottom and side and 2 handles, so it can be carried and set down in 2 ways. On the back there are 2 zips which hold a covering for the 2 straps which are permanently attached at the top and connect to the sides with hooks. The padding on the inside bottom is firm and feels a lot harder than my Series 2 case. The top, however, has more padding and is more flexible. I would have thought that there should have been more padding on the bottom as there is at the top. There is also in the case a cutout section for the mouthpiece and neck. Overall, the case is a very nice design and looks like a suitcase, but I must admit that I like the Selmer case more. At present, I like having a zip rather than these locking clamps, but the 2 cases are very similar. So what do I think about this saxophone, having played on it for the past few months? Well, there's not many negative things I can say about it. I did say before that 2 of the side keys are not in the ideal position for my large hands, though I can't really complain about that since saxophones are not made for specific hand sizes. The front F key on my saxophone squeaks when I press it in, though the saxophone was not set up by a technician. It was bought from an online shop, but having said that, it plays quite well straight out of the box. Most of the videos I've watched about Yanagisawa saxophones, they all say that Yanagisawa have a good reputation for setting up their saxophones straight from the factory, so I'm quite pleased with it. Pressing down the front F key fully down, I did notice that the key seems to move a bit under my finger. So if you've got a heavy hand and you press down that key fully down, you may find that it slides around a bit. I did try out on my Selmer saxophone to see whether the key moves in a similar fashion, and yes it did, but not to the amount that it moves on the Yanagisawa saxophone. And I put it down to the arm being longer on the Yanagisawa saxophone than on the Selmer saxophone. If you have a light touch when you're playing the saxophone, you're not going to really notice it, but if you push down the keys with a greater force, then you may find that you feel it sliding about under your finger. The main thing that was a concern for me, that I thought would be a major concern, was that within the first month of buying the saxophone, I got my first stuck key, a stuck G sharp key. Now with my Selmer saxophone, I did not have any problems with stuck keys until after the first year. So having a stuck key on this Yanagisawa saxophone within the first month was a concern for me. But having changed my cleaning routine, making sure that the moisture was removed from the pad and from the tone hole, I haven't had any problems with stuck keys since then. So I'm not quite sure whether it's because I changed my cleaning routine or whether it's because the saxophone was new and the pads were new and it needed to be worked in. But like I said before, I haven't had any problems since that time with stuck keys. So what are the good things about this saxophone? Well, obviously it's a professional saxophone, so as you would expect, it has good intonation and good tone. Personally, for me, there is a particular tone that I have in my head that I'm chasing after. So in order to try and achieve that tone, I have been playing or experimenting with different reeds, different cuts of reeds, different brands, different reed strengths, and I've been trying out various mouthpieces to try and get a combination that will help me to achieve that tone that I have in my head. Now, when playing these various mouthpieces with these various different reeds on my Selmer saxophone, I have to confess that all of the mouthpieces sounded basically alike. Couldn't really tell a difference in playing these various mouthpieces. Obviously, playing a metal mouthpiece, it might have been louder. Playing another mouthpiece with a different strength reed, it might have sounded a little bit stuffier because it wasn't the right combination, but the tone basically sounded alike. However, when playing with these different mouthpieces and reed combinations on the Yanagisawa saxophone, I would have to admit that I did hear a difference in the tone when playing these different mouthpieces. And so I'd have to agree with some of the other reviews which stated that on the Yanagisawa, you're able to manipulate the tone a bit more than on some of these other saxophones. I guess if you're a beginner saxophone player or an intermediate player, then you might not notice any difference between this professional saxophone and another professional saxophone apart from the ergonomics of the saxophone. But if you've been playing for quite some time, then you might begin to notice the different nuances of the tone that the Yanagisawa saxophone allows you to produce. Well, I hope you found this video helpful and informative, and if you did, as usual, give it a like, share and subscribe, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.